So here we have the code that we had previously written to read a value, that is set a value and then get a value. So before getting into built-in data types or function visibility keywords, there is an important keyword here, which is the view keyword. Now, if you remember, we had used two functions here, the get value function and the set value function. So the get value function is in blue because it is read only, and the set value function is in orange because we can actually modify the data using the set value function on blockchain. So if you look here, we are modifying the data. But here we are using the view keyword. Now the view keyword is the keyword which makes the function read only. There is one question. What is the difference between external and public? Now, external and public are visibility keywords which are used in smart contracts. So, external is also a visibility keyword and public is also a visibility keyword. So, external means that you are allowing anyone to have access to your function. That is, whatever value you are placing within your function, that value will be accessible to all outside the function. Now, public is a function that can be called from not only outside but from inside the smart contract. So this is the most permissive function visibility that you can use. But in most cases, you don't give the public visibility, because oftentimes what can happen is that you can make your declare your function public, and what this can cause is it can open some security vulnerabilities for you. Maybe you had some addresses that you are storing there, maybe there were some like accounts which some information that you wouldn't want to make public. So external, public, private, internal, all of these are function visibility keywords, and this private is the most restrictive and public is the least restrictive visibility that you can provide. So if you're familiar with Java, you'll know what these keywords actually do. So getting on, we were talking about this view keyword over here. So view keyword is a read-only keyword. So if you put this view keyword inside your function signature, it means that you are only allowed to read value. You cannot manipulate value here. So if I say value is equal to 3, it will give me an error. It says function is declared as view, but this expression modifies the state. So Solidity says that when you declare a function as view only, it should not do any kind of manipulation. You should not you should not allow it to manipulate values. It should only read values and return values. So this is your view keyword, which is used if you want to declare your function as a read only function. Now we'll be talking about the function visibility keywords. So function visibility keywords allow you to define who can have access to your functions. That is, if you now see here, this is your state variable. This here is your state variable, and this state variable gets stored on your blockchain. The state variable will be stored on your blockchain. So it is very important to identify which kind of visibility will you provide to your state variable, and that visibility is dependent upon your function visibility keywords. So there are many function visibility keywords, right from private till public. So private is the most restrictive visibility keyword and public is the most permissible visibility keyword. So here you have all the visibility keywords that are available with Solidity. So if you look at this here, these are the visibility keywords that are available with your Solidity smart contract. So you have public keyword, you have private keyword, you have internal keyword, you have external keyword, and all of these keywords provide some kind of visibility to your functions. And you know that you are using functions to manipulate whatever data is being stored on your blockchain. So let us start with the most restrictive form of visibility that is being provided, and this is private. Now with private keyword, you can only call the function from inside the smart contract. And also as a convention, what you're doing is these contracts cannot be even used within derived contracts. So if you create a smart contract, which is in turn calling another smart contract, and if you have any function in a smart contract that is private, that will not be inherited. That will not be part of contracts interface. So private keyword can only be called from within the function where you have specified, and it cannot be out like used outside, it cannot be inherited, it cannot be a part of any smart contract that is being created as a result of some other smart contract. So let us see how this private keyword is used. So if I make this private, if I make this private, so as a syntax, whenever you have a private uh, function, you use an underscore to depict your private function. Now, if I redeploy the smart contract, I have redeployed this smart contract here. So you can see the get value function has gone now. We do not have a get value function here. So if after redeploying the smart contract, you will see that the get value function is not present here anymore because I have made this function private. So this cannot be called from outside the smart contract. No other function will be able to manipulate its value. So this private function is the most restrictive. Now again, if I deploy it, it has created another contract, and you can see now I have both the set value and the get value functions. So this is the most restrictive form of visibility that you can provide in your smart contract. So after private, we have a visibility keyword which is called as internal. Now, within internal, the function is limited to be called from within the smart contract, but it can also be called from a smart contract which inherits from this smart contract. So what we are saying is internal will mean that you are allowed to use the function only from the inside. But if you have a smart contract which in turn initiates or creates another smart contract, then you can also be able to use your function from that smart contract. That is, it means that the function can be used from within the current contract and also from any other contract that inherits it. So you can access it from inside and also from any other smart contract that has been created as a result of this smart contract, the present smart contract. But it cannot be accessed from outside. It cannot be accessed from outside the smart contract. So this is the second visibility modifier that we have here with Solidity. So next, the visibility modifier that we have is external modifier. So next is the external modifier. Now we are going in the order from from most restrictive to least restrictive. So the most restrictive visibility is the private visibility. Next is the internal visibility. Third is the external visibility, and finally we have the public visibility. So external visibility will mean that your contract can be accessed from outside also, inside as well as outside. Next finally we have the public visibility keyword. Am I audible? Okay, so I was saying that next that we have is the public visibility. Now, with public visibility, you can call a function not only from outside, but also from inside the smart contract. And this is the most permissive form of function visibility that you can use. But if you're starting out with writing smart contracts, the rule of thumb here is that you give the minimum amount of privilege to any function, that you start with private. That is, start trying with private, then internal, then external, and then public. And as a last resort only, you should use public. Try with private, see what works, what not. If it is not working with private, try with internal. If it is not working with internal, try with external. But you should use public as the last resort, because public function can be called from all potential parties, and it exposes your smart contracts to some security vulnerabilities, because if anyone can access your functions, anyone can modify their values, then there is some security problems associated with the public visibility keyword. Now we'll talk about some built-in variables that are present in Solidity. We'll talk about some built-in variables that are present in Solidity. So if we talk about the built-in keywords that are present in Solidity, we have three types of built-in keywords. And why do we need these built-in variables in Solidity is because using these built-in variables, you can get information about your Solidity environment. That is, which Ethereum address is sending us some ether, how much ether was transferred to our smart contract, or how much amount of ether our smart contract is sending to some other contract address. So that kind of value you will be able to get with your built-in variables. Now there are three types of built-in variables that are used. We have transaction, next we have message, and the third built-in variable that we have is a block. So these are three built-in variables that are present in Solidity. So first built-in variable is the transaction origin built-in variable. So you can simply use this transaction origin and it will tell you from where your transaction has originated. That is, it will give you the address, the Ethereum address of the account that has initiated the smart contract. Initiated the smart contract, initiated the, say, transaction, whichever the origin of your transaction can be like retrieved using these transaction origin function. So we have this transaction origin which allows you to receive the origin of the transaction. Next we have message. So with message we have two types of value. We have message.value and we have message.sender. So we have two kinds of values, which is message.value and message.sender. So message.value here will give you the amount of ether that was sent to your smart contract. So here we are writing a smart contract. If you'll see here, this is our address. So this message.value will give us the amount of ether that was sent to this smart contract. Next, we have message.sender here. So message.sender will give you the Ethereum address that called the function. So if you look at this transaction origin and message sender, so both of them are almost doing the similar thing. Transaction origin is giving you the Ethereum address that sent you a transaction, and message.sender will also give you the Ethereum address that called the function. So what is the difference between the two? So let us take a step back and understand the difference between what transaction.origin is and message.sender is. So let us assume a hypothetical scenario where we have a human that is calling a smart contract. That is, we have an account, externally owned account. We have an externally owned account, and this account is initiating a transaction and it is calling a contract account. We know that contract account cannot initiate transactions on their own. To initiate a smart contract, you have to send a transaction that will initiate the contract account. So we are saying that we have an hypothetical scenario here where we have an externally owned account. So externally owned accounts are managed by private keys. That is, you have some user and user has its private key which is initiating the transaction. So we have a user which is initiating a transaction and it is calling a contract account which will execute a smart contract. And since we are doing this on a blockchain, we are going to call her Alice. So we have Alice. Alice, what is she doing is Alice is initiating a, so this is Alice. Alice has an externally owned account. All right, Alice has an externally owned account and she calls a smart contract A. Now, in order to call a smart contract, you will have to initiate a transaction. So she calls a smart contract A. Now, if we look at transaction.origin, it will give us the Ethereum address of Alice because Alice initiated the smart contract. Now, if I do message.sender will also give us the Ethereum address of Alice. Why? Because to initiate the smart contract, Alice was the initiator of the transaction. Now assume that this smart contract A initiates another smart contract and the smart contract is B. The name of the smart contract is B. So here we have a smart contract A which is calling another smart contract. Now if we do transaction.origin so we will get the Ethereum address of Alice, but if I do message.sender will give us the address of smart contract. So you can see here that message.sender also gives you the Ethereum address, Transaction.origin will also give you the Ethereum address. But since Alice was the initiator of the transaction origin will not change. Even if the smart contract B initiates another smart contract C, the transaction origin will always be the Ethereum address of Alice. But since this smart contract C is being initiated by contract B, the initiator, that is the message sender, will become the address of smart contract B, because smart contract B will be initiating the smart contract C. So this is the difference between transaction origin and message.sender. So message.sender will be the Ethereum address that initiated the transaction to create a new smart contract or to create a new transaction. But transaction origin will like give you the Ethereum address of the account that sent the transaction. And we have another which is known as message.value. Message.value will give you the amount of ether. Message.value will give us the amount of ether that, so say Alice sends 500 ether to us. Now if I do message.value here, it will give me the value of 500, sorry. So we are talking about ether, but in reality we know that we use a unit which is y, and this y is a very small fraction of ether. And when you start writing your smart contracts, you will know that you cannot directly manipulate ether. You will always have to work with y. So this is the basic difference between what transaction origin is and what message dot sender is. So we have three built-in types. One is transaction, one is message, and one is block. So we have seen what transaction dot origin does. We have message dot sender and we have message dot value. So coming back to this here. So yes, we have message.value, message.sender, and transaction.origin. Next, the built-in variable type that we have is block. And the most common, you can say, the function that you use here, the field is, sorry, will be block.timestamp. We have block.timestamp. Now what block.timestamp will do is, block.timestamp will give you the timestamp at which the block was generated. It will give you the timestamp at which the block is generated. So this block.timestamp is a very useful function which allows you to give the timestamp used for mining, that is at when you perform your proof of work consensus algorithm and your block is added to the blockchain, this block.timestamp field will give you the time at which the block was created. Now next we'll be talking about mapping. Why we need to talk about mapping is because mapping allows us to say have some amount associated with your addresses. That is, if you have an Ethereum address, some amount of ether will be associated with that address. So with mapping, you can do that. You can have key value pairs, which allows you to associate or bind your mapping with your, like bind your address with your values or whichever ether is, whatever amount of ether is present in your account. So next we'll be talking about mappings now. So with respect to mapping, we'll be talking about how do we declare a mapping, how do we like update a mapping, delete a mapping, or read a mapping. So four options we'll be discussing. So now we will be talking about mapping. So with mapping, we'll be talking about how do you like create a mapping, how do you read a mapping, how do you update a mapping, and how do you delete a mapping. So these are the four things that we will be talking about. So first we will be talking about how do we declare a mapping. So first we'll talk about declaring a mapping. So important thing to know here is that you can declare your mapping as a state variable. So how do you do that? You say mapping, this mapping keyword will declare your mapping, and here you can give some address, and this address is getting mapped to some amount of ether. And since ether is integer, you will be using int. And so if you look at this here, this mapping is a keyword which is used to create a mapping, and this address indicate the type of keys. So for example, if I want my keys to be addresses, then this is being mapped to this. This is key and this is value. So my keys are the addresses. I want my keys to be addresses, and then I have to use an arrow notation to specify the type of value. So the type of value is unsigned integer because I want to map my Ethereum addresses to the balance that is being stored in those addresses. So here what I'm doing is I have an address, and then you need the name of the mapping. So name of the mapping say is balances. So you need the name of the mapping to fully create the mapping. So here we have a mapping that is being done from addresses to whatever amount of ether is being stored. So this address here will be the address of some user. This int here will be their balances. So now we have declared a mapping, and this mapping is our state variable. How do we use this mapping now? And we know that to use a mapping, we will always have to declare a function. So to manipulate your state variables, whatever they may be, whether they are some integer values, whether there is like they are struct values, whether they are mappings, you will always have to create functions to manipulate your state variables. So let us say that we create a function and we name the function foo, and the function is external, which means that this function can be read from the outside. Now what exactly we are doing here, we want to add elements to our mapping. We want to add elements to our mapping. So this is how you declare mapping. Mapping is a state variable. You have a function here which allows you to manipulate your state variables. And then what we need to do here is we need to add some elements to our mapping. So how do we do that? So here to add elements, you will use the name of the mapping. The name of the mapping is balances, and I will say message dot value is equal to 100. message dot value is equal to 100. So what we are doing is I am putting a value of 100 inside the address that we have. So what you're simply doing here is that message.value means the amount of ether that needs to be stored, and you are doing it, putting it as 100. So 100 ether or 100 Y will be stored at a certain address. So this will be your address. This will give you the number of ethers, and this is how you specify the number of ethers that you want to store in your Ethereum account. Next, let us see how we read a mapping. To read a mapping, you simply do balances. This allows you to read your mapping. So this will become more clear when we write a smart contract or when you write your smart contract. Then we have update dot mapping, update dot mapping, and same thing you're doing here. Balances message dot value, and then you add your updated value. You created a mapping that this smart contract should have 100 ether. Now you say that instead of having 100 ether, it should have 200 ethers. So you can do that here. Now instead of having 100 ethers, it will have 200 ether. So you can add a new value like this if you like. And finally, another operation is to delete the mapping. That is, how do we delete a mapping? So to delete a mapping, you simply have to say delete balances, which is the name of your mapping, and message dot sender. So this is how you delete a mapping. So with mapping, you can perform 4 operations. You can first create your mapping, that is your mapping your Ethereum addresses to certain balance that is associated with those addresses. Then what you're doing is you can add some ether to your Ethereum address, and to add the ether, you will use message.value. To read the balance, you will do message.sender. Update the balance, you will add the new value. This will give you the new value or the updated value. And then finally, you can delete balances using this syntax. Now, I want to talk about how can we create a smart contract that will allow us to, say, transfer ether from a regular address to a smart contract. So how do we write a smart contract which allows you to transfer ether from some address to a smart contract? So to do this, there is one you can say keyword, one function which is called the payable. So we have a function which is called payable, and that payable function, what it specifies is that it will allow you to accept some ether. Without the payable function, the smart contract will reject an incoming transfer. So the function that I am saying is called payable. This function payable, it will allow your smart contracts to accept ether. So in order to send ether to a smart contract, you will have to need a function, and the function is the payable function declared using this payable keyword. And this payable specifies that the function can accept some ether, and without this function, if you don't put this function in your smart contract, you will not be able to accept any ether in your smart contract. So if you write a smart contract but you missed using this payable keyword, if you are even if you're getting some transfer, the smart contract will reject an incoming transfer. So let us try to write a smart contract that allows you to send some Ether from an account to the Ethereum address. So let us see how we do that. So we know that these are the first steps. You specify pragma, solidity, your contract keyword, the name of your contract. Now, what we are doing is that we want to create a smart contract that allows you to send some Ether from one account to another. That is, you need to send Ether from one account to another, and for that you will have to use a payable keyword. So let us write the smart contract and then we'll see how that functions. So I use a function and I'm saying that I want to send some Ether. So say invest external and I make it payable. I use the payable keyword to make it payable. Then I need a second function. We will create this for returning the balance of the smart contract. That is, if this function, the smart contract is getting some incoming Ether, we need to know what amount of Ether has been sent to our smart contract or what amount of Ether has been received in our smart contract. So we will create a second function. We'll create a second function that will be returning whatever balance is present in our smart contract. And now this function will also prove that whatever money you transferred, whatever Ether or way you transferred has been accepted in this smart contract. So let us create a function and we'll call it balance of this account. So we call it balance of. Then we use the keyword external view. It will return what? It will return the Ether that is stored. So it will have a return type of uint because our Ethereum values or Y values are integer values. And then we will simply return the address. We will simply return the Now, the reason we are using this will mean whatever smart contract we are talking about. So here we are talking about our own smart contract because we want to return the balance of this smart contract. Therefore, we are using this keyword. So now what is happening is that you are casting the balance to an address because we have an address field in the balance. Okay. So this is your smart contract here. What exactly is your smart contract doing is it is sending some money and then we are checking whether that money has been received or not. So we'll then check whether the money has been received or not. So now what we do is we will specify the amount of value that we want to send. That is, we will specify the value that we want to send. So first we need to send some ether with the invest function. So here you have a value field here. You will have to specify the amount of Y that you want to send. And just a quick refresher, a Y is the smallest fraction of ether. So say I want to send 1,000 Ys. So on the level of Ethereum virtual machine, that is how we specify ether transactions. We don't specify like exactly the ether amount, but we will always specify the Ethereum, the ether transactions in the form of Y. And you have other like denominations also. You have GY, you have FINI, you have ether, but whatever denomination you use, everything inside the Ethereum virtual machine will be converted in the form of Y. So we are saying that we are transferring 1,000 Y. So now let us click on deploy here. So we have deployed our smart contract, and one second please, let me clear these values. Okay. So we have written our smart contract. If you deploy it, it will give you two functions here. The first is invest and the second is balance off. You should have told me before if the screen was not visible. So let us go through this again. So I'm saying that we are writing a smart contract which will allow us to transfer some amount of ether from an account address to a smart contract. So what exactly is a smart contract doing is that is it will transfer some amount of ether to this smart contract. So what I have done is what we are doing here is that we have created a function and we have made the function payable. So in order to send ether to a smart contract, you will need to have a function with the payable keyword. And this payable keyword, it will specify that the function can accept some ether. So if you're not using this payable keyword here, what will happen is your like smart contract will reject any incoming ether transfer. Also, you cannot use the view keyword. You have to keep it non-view. The reason you need to keep it non-view is because this is your Ethereum Solidity syntax. A regular function can work with different type of transactions, but when you want to send Ethereum to a function and a view keyword is present there, you will not be able to send it. So if you are using your functions to transfer ether, then it should be payable and it should not be view. Now here we have a second function. This second function we are saying we call it balance off. Now the reason we call it balance off is because we are going to retrieve whatever balance is being, whatever amount of ether is being sent to this smart contract. Now, the reason why we are also writing this function is because it will tell us the amount of ether that has been transferred. So this is the syntax here. What you're doing here is you are doing return address this dot balance. So what does this mean? It means that you are trying to return the balance, but of which smart contract? The smart contract that you're using is this smart contract. So this keyword refers to the smart contract that we want to use to retrieve whatever ether values are present there. And we are casting this to an address because we have an address as a field called balance. Now, if you deploy your smart contract is deployed here and you get two fields here. First field is the name of the first function invest and the second field is the field called balance off. So now, if you look at the options that are present on your extreme right, here we have a field which is called value. So here in the value field, you will have to specify how many Y you want to send. So assume I want to send 500 or 5000 Y. So it will allow us to send 5000 Y to this Ethereum address, which is the address of the smart contract. And then we will be using this balance of function to check whether the amount has been received or not. And then here you have the currencies, the denominations. It could be Y, it could be GY, it could be FINI, it could be Ether. But at the base level on which your Ethereum virtual machine operates, every transaction that is present in Ether or any other denomination will always be converted into Y. So we are saying that the value that we want to transfer is 5,000 or 4990. So what we are doing is we are clicking on invest. That is, we want to send the value to this address. Now, if I check the balance of function, it will show me the amount of Ether that has been transferred here. It will tell me the amount of Ether that has been transferred to me. So if I want to transfer, say, now if you look at the current value here, the current value is 4,990. So if I say I want to transfer 10Y, I want to transfer 10Y into this smart contract, I will say invest. So I have transferred 10Y to this smart contract, which is my contract, and then we can check whether those 10Y have been received or not. So we will click on balance of, and now the balance has become 5,000. So using these two functions, what we are doing is you are using an external address, and that external address, you're specifying the amount of Ether that you want to transfer, the amount of Ether that you want to transfer, or the amount of Y. Then you are sending that amount to this my smart contract. You're sending this 5688 amount to this smart contract by clicking on invest. And then you have also created another function which is balance of, that allows you to check the balance of your smart contract, that how much amount of Ether is present in your smart contract. So this is sending Ether from a contract account to a smart contract here. So this is how you will send some amount of money from one smart contract to another. Now there is one other function which is called the revert function. So this revert function can allow you to revert a transaction transfer. So if you say that your smart contract was, now if some condition executes, there should be a transaction that transfers, say, 1,000 Ether into your smart contract. Okay. So on so and so date, some payment has to be made, and that payment will come inside your smart contract. This is an assumption, that is hypothetically assume that if some goods are delivered, then some payment should come into this smart contract. Now, you can also have a function which says that if the value that you are receiving is less than 1,000, if the value that you're receiving is less than 1,000, what you can do is you can simply revert the transaction. You can simply revert the transaction. So what this revert keyword will do is it will cancel the transaction and execution will not continue. It will cancel the transaction and execution will not continue. Let us see if this works. I'm saying I will transfer. Currently, you have no contract to interact with. Okay, so I have deployed a contract. 1 second. There is some error here. Function invest external payable, this is correct. Function balance of external views returns. If I try to deploy it, okay, it is deploying. Okay. So as I was saying that this revert keyword will allow you to revert a transaction. And remember we were saying that we cannot put a view function over here. Now if I put a view function over here and deploy the smart contract, then what will happen is that I will not be able to interact with my smart contract because it will make it a read only function. It will give me an error, that is it is payable but you are declaring it as view. So we'll stop here. This is a very quick introduction to how to interact with smart contracts, how to transfer ether. So this is what we'll be covering. We'll have a bit of theory which we will cover, but as for the demo, this is all we will cover. If you start executing on your own, if you have any doubts, please do ask. Otherwise, you can drop the enrollment numbers and we can end the class. Also, next week, we will not be having class for blockchain technology, fundamentals of blockchain technology on Tuesday, as well as on Saturday.